Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard Caesar 924 coming at you with my Wrestling Reimagining booking series today. And as you can read up the title of the screen, this is going to be my rebooking of WWE throughout the year of 2006. A year that was actually pretty peculiar looking back in retrospect. We had John Cena coming in 2006. He had just been coming to his own as a main eventer, much to a negative outcry throughout the hardcore wrestling community. So a lot of the John Cena hate really was at its peak throughout most of '06 and even in a little bit in '07 going forward. Although technically in 2017 it's not really seems to be as big of a deal compared to how it was like throughout over 10 years ago, hard to believe. But yeah, John Cena was definitely getting a lot of heat during this time, and WWE just never really went out their way to really, truly capitalize on the heat that John Cena has had. We also had Batista going into the new year as the World Heavyweight Champion. He got sidelined throughout most of 2006 due to a tricep injury. We also had Rey Mysterio's road to the world title and just basically the world title reign itself, which was left more to be desired. And even just the fact that Rey Mysterio had been on top just because of what happened with Eddie Guerrero and being portrayed as the quote unquote charity case. We also had the reunion of D-Generation X, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and they were kind of going through a massive program between the McMahons and the Spirit Squad, which, speaking of the Spirit Squad, was also another one of those comedy gimmicks that played a huge part in Monday Night Raw. And that was kind of a one of those moments, one of those stables where you had to really scratch your head, especially just how they were portrayed as, and even especially how they fallen after DX just completely shipped them back to OVW, if anyone remembers that segment. But yeah, I mean, 2006 in hindsight was just very ludicrous, and even with the revival of ECW, that also kind of diluted the roster as well. Because if you really think about it, 2006 was the sort of the jump the shark moment when the brand extension started to lose its purpose. And what I mean by that is when this became more apparent when guys from opposite brands would start to appear on other shows. So, for instance, you would have like Jeff Hardy, who came back later that year. He would be on the Monday Night Raw brand, and he would be teaming with Matt, who was on SmackDown. And even though it was cool to see the Hardy Boys in retrospect, but realistically, if you want to follow brand extension rules, it's like, how's that even possible that they're teaming with each other if they're from opposite brands? I mean, how do you clarify that? So I think that was kind of one of those examples, especially the way that they were handling the brand extension during this time. So I don't think they slowly started to break the rules when it came to the brand extension, meaning that you have to stay on that respective brand, unless if it was a Big Four pay-per-view where wrestlers from Raws and Smackdowns and later ECW would all come together on one show. I really want to take this opportunity and to try to rewrite history, hopefully in a better way possible. If you've been following my fantasy booking series, this is going to be kind of like what I've been doing with my WCW 1998 fantasy rebooking. And basically, I'm going to split them into multiple parts throughout the years and basically go from pay-per-view to pay-per-view to pay-per-view. And that's going to be what I'm going to be doing here for WWE in 2006. Now, ECW, I probably should also make mention of this, but I'm not going to be rebooking ECW, and I just don't really have a lot of knowledge of ECW. Well, even if it does get revived like it did in reality, I'm just going to leave it up to Paul Heyman and his creative team of writers to book ECW in particular. I just want to kick off this fantasy booking series officially by booking the Raw pay-per-view event, New Year's Revolution. Now, the matches that I booked on New Year's Revolution consist of 6 pay-per-view matches. Going into this show, I have Shelton Benjamin winning the IC title belt by defeating Ric Flair just on the go-home show of Raw heading into New Year's Revolution. Ric Flair was in the middle of a program with Edge, and Edge is going to interfere in that match and find a way to cost Ric Flair to lose the IC title belt to Shelton Benjamin, which will explain the IC title belt being up for grabs in this opening pay-per-view bout. Now, Shelton Benjamin's taking on Tajiri. There isn't really a whole lot of build-up, you could say. I mean, Tajiri, was also on the Raw brand as well. And both these two wrestlers have very similar wrestling styles with the hybrid mix of pure wrestling mixed in with some high-flying acrobatics. Now, this is just going to be a way to really kick off the show, just really hot, just kind of get the crowd rolling, sort of fast-paced action, so to speak. And Shelton Benjamin is going to walk out, still your Intercontinental Champion. Tajiri don't really have as much to do with him. I mean, he was sort of on his way out during this time, and plus he was just basically an enhancement talent at this point. But I think Shelton Benjamin and Tajiri could really pull off a really great match, and I believe they will. And this will be kind of like my opening bout, just to really get the crowd excited. And the second match I have on here is Rosey versus Shane the Hurricane Helms. And this is around the time when these two former tag team partners started to separate each other and start venturing off into singles competition. But particularly in this case with the Hurricane, since Rosey was, in retrospect, on his way out not long after this. And basically towards the end of 2005, there was a bit of a disintegration going on between the two after they lost the tag titles to Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, a non-sanctioned match is proposed when Rosey gets his retribution against his former tag team partner and champion, the Hurricane, or as he now refers to as Shane, the Hurricane Helms. After they lost the tag titles to Cade and Murdoch, the Hurricane and Rosey have been suffering through multiple losses, combined with a massive decline in merchandise sales. Sick and tired of horseplaying, the Hurricane snaps on Rosey. So the next time we see the Hurricane, he's no longer dressed in his superhero outfit. He just comes out to the arena dressed in street clothes with a pair of shades. Shane Helms explains his actions to the crowd in attendance, letting it be known that the Hurricane you once knew him is dead, and now has been reborn as a shoot fighter with zero regard of his well-being. Rosey comes out with no sympathy to his ex-partner in hopes of teaching Shane a lesson not to mess with the Wild Samoan. Now, because of the circumstances, especially with all the back and forth brawling that they would have in the weeks leading to the New Year's Revolution, this is going to be a no-holds-barred match. So weapons are allowed, no DQs, no countouts. We're going to see a lot of brawling throughout the arena and maybe backstage as well. And as for the reason why the Hurricane is now referring to himself as Shane the Hurricane Helms, this is kind of emphasizes more on portraying him as sort of a brooding street fighter of sorts. And this was at the time when UFC was really hitting it huge in terms of popularity. I believe Spike TV at this time started acquiring rights to the UFC programs, especially with The Ultimate Fighter. And I thought that was actually a pretty cool gimmick that Mickey Babylon, I remember he did in his WCW 2000 booking, where he had Shane Helms repackaged as a sort of a shoot fighter. And that's kind of like how I want to portray Shane Helms throughout this course of this fantasy booking, just kind of like this brooding street fighter with no soul and just a little more fire in his character, just more cutting edge and less superficial like he was when he was a superhero. Now I like the Hurricane gimmick personally, but not that I'm saying the Hurricane gimmick was bad, but I think it was actually a really cool idea just to kind of reinvent his character, really give him a new direction. As much as it pains me to stray away from the Hurricane gimmick that got Shane Helms really over. But I think this could really work out in the long run, and it's just a shame that his gimmick just like WWE just kind of stopped pushing him after a while. So I want to really take this opportunity to showcase Shane Helms and even Rosey and put them in a no holds barred match for the Shane Helms to go over his former tag partner. Then we have is a 6-woman gauntlet match, and the winner of this gauntlet match will go on to face Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble. Now, they did do a gauntlet match at the actual New Year's Revolution, but it was like bra and panties, meaning that you had to strip your opponent through their clothes in order to eliminate your opponents. But here, I'm just going to make it a straight-up traditional wrestling match. Pinfalls, submissions, they all apply in this match. And the competitors that will be competing in the gauntlet match will consist of Mickie James, Victoria, Ashley, Candice Michelle, Tori Wilson, and Lita, who I believe was, by this point, was medically cleared to wrestle. Now, basically, this match just, because women matches weren't necessarily that long during this time, so you want to give it a reasonable length of time. I want to say maybe 10 minutes, hopefully that will give them a reasonable amount of time. Not necessarily anything over 10 minutes, but this will eventually come down to the likes of Victoria and Mickie James. Mickie James had been on the roster for about a few months going into this pay-per-view, and they portrayed her as sort of like this obsessive, psychotic character. She was a huge fan of Trish Stratus. She debuted as a fan that idolized her and even wanted a chance to, affiliate with her in some way, shape, or form, and even have a match with her. So I thought that was actually a really cool gimmick that I really like with Mickie James, and the way that they were presenting her the first couple months that she debuted. I wouldn't have done the Mickie Trish match just yet. I think that was a little too soon. I think you should give it a little more time to build up to that program. But for now, Mickie and Trish are on good terms at this moment. And this would actually be the start of Mickie James, where we really start to show a little bit of the darker side of Mickie James and just how sadistic and how mentally psychotic she can be. And Victoria's going to sneak up a win with a dirty roll up out of nowhere. She's going to use rope leverage. She's going to win the match to earn that title shot against Trish at the Royal Rumble, much to Mickie James's chagrin. And she just goes completely nanners after the match. Post-match, she's just so frustrated, and it just evolves into something even more vicious than that. And she's like destroying all equipment. She's taking out the TV monitors from the commentary table. She's, whacking the ring post with a steel chair. She's just taking out all her anger, and you have referees coming in to restrain her, and even Trish Stratus doing all she can to try to calm her down as well. This is going to be something that's going to really plant the seeds for what I'm going to do with Mickie James down the road. And just the fact that she just not only came up short in the match, but she's just kind of not given that opportunity to have a proper one-on-one match against her favorite wrestler. And it just kind of leaves her devastated. So I'm going to play this up a lot more as the weeks go on. And Victoria, like I said, is going to walk out of the gauntlet match as the number one contender. Then we have is the World Tag Team Championship belts up for grabs. The Big Show and Kane, going into 2006, they'll put their belts up for grabs against the likes of Gene Snitsky and Tyson Tomko. Now, the tag team division in reality was really wearing thin at this point. It was definitely on life support. And other than Big Show and Kane, you also had Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. You also had the Heartthrobs, but even they were kind of portrayed as comedic tag teams. So there wasn't really a whole lot of competition going on in that particular division. But then there were two particular wrestlers on the Raw brand, and I decided to pair them up just based on their physique, and their sort of clash of personalities just really goes well with guys like Gene Snitsky and Tyson Tomko, like these two powerhouse wrestlers that are just completely dominant. And you have like Big Show and Kane, who are also like these two behemoths, and they were pronounced as the world's largest team. And this would be a way to give Big Show and Kane a little bit of competition, something to keep them occupied. So Big Show and Kane are going to go over Gene Snitsky and Tyson Tomko, but Tomko and Snitsky will look fairly strong going in this match, and you have to give them rack them some TV victories in order to make them look a lot credible heading into this tag team title bout here. Big Show and Kane will walk out of New Year's Revolution still your World Tag Team Champions. You also have a bout between Edge and Ric Flair, and this is the match that they did in reality. And I actually thought that this was a good idea to put these two in the match together. Around this time, they were doing this sort of build-up where Edge was ridiculing Ric Flair, and there was a particular segment on Raw where Edge was parroting Ric Flair as far as the road rage incident that happened around this time that was all over the media. And basically, as far as I can remember reading the article, like Ric Flair assaulted a random driver, and this just had him completely nanners, and he got arrested as a result of the incident. Now, Edge ended up parroting that incident, and he was cosplaying as Ric Flair and just basically impersonating him and doing all these sort of parodies on the incident that happened during this time. And that really infuriated Ric Flair, and just having Edge, someone like him, to just poke fun at Ric Flair in his personal life, just getting into his skin. And that was basically how the feud sort of originated. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give this match a lot of time, and they actually had this open up the show, but unfortunately they were given about 7 to 8 minutes, which was surprisingly short for a match that had so much build-up other than the Elimination Chamber match. Now, I would definitely give them plenty of time, and this would be a match that will be sort of a double-header in terms of the pay-per-view card. But the match will unfortunately end like in disqualification, just as it happened. Edge will club Ric Flair with the Money in the Bank briefcase that he'd been holding. That's how the match will end, but the feud is far from over. And now we have as the main event with the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title. John Cena defends the belt against Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, Carlito, Chris Masters, and Triple H. Really, the match happened just as it occurred. Only difference is that I put Triple H in there instead of Kane, since I had him defend the belts with the Big Show earlier that night. But the match basically plays out the same either way, and Cena's going to retain the belt just as it happened. Afterwards, Vince McMahon will come out. He announces John Cena's like, even though you won that match fair and square, unfortunately the show is not over just yet. You still have one more match left to go. And Vince McMahon informs to the audience that Edge will be cashing in his Money in the Bank clause, and will use that clause to challenge John Cena for the WWE title. Edge hands Vince the briefcase. He goes out there, delivers a spear. Cena kicks out. Edge goes back to the turnbuckle, spears Cena once more. 1, 2, 3. Edge walks out as the new WWE champion. And that's how I really close out the show there. That's basically my card for New Year's Revolution. Tell me what you all guys thought about how I booked the card. Stay tuned for my next series as I will rebook WWE Royal Rumble. So stick around for that if you're interested. And until then, this is the Gold Standard 00924 signing out.